Greetings, this is Christine Bundy on Gibson County, Indiana, and we are continuing with Brett Allen Winter's Declaration of 76, United States Constitution, a common lawyer comments clause by clause. And as we've been going through, we go through last week's study guide questions, and then we'll go through the reading, and then we'll go through the study guide questions so that you can fill in those answers for next week. All right, last week was pages 212 to 219. Here's the YouTube link for the audio that we'll run through the questions. Amendment 14, Section 1, all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. Section 2. Question number 2, Section 2. Representatives shall be apportioned among the several states according to their respective numbers, counting the whole number of persons in each state, excluding Indians not taxed. Number 3, Section 3, no person shall be a senator or representative in Congress or elector of president and vice president or hold any office, civil or military, under the United States or under any state who have previously taken an oath as a member of Congress or as an officer of the United States or as a member of any state legislature, as an executive or judicial officer of any state, to support the Constitution of the United States shall have engaged in insurrection or rebellion against the same, or given aid or comfort to the enemies thereof, but Congress may, by a vote of 2/3 of each house, remove such disability. Number 4, Section 4, the validity of the public debt of the United States authorized by law, including debts incurred for payment of pensions and boundaries for services in suppressing insurrection or rebellion, shall not be questioned. But neither the United States nor any state shall assume or pay any debt or obligation incurred in aid or insurrection or rebellion against the United States, or any claim or the loss of emancipation of any slave, but all such debts, obligations, and claims shall be illegal and void. All right. Number 5. Oh, it helps if we're displaying, aren't we? Okay, so we'll get to number 5 here. Section 5, the Congress shall have power to enforce by appropriate legislation the provisions of this article. Number 6. Here we go. Amendment 14 removed state citizenship as the requirement for national citizenship. Number 7, the state governments are, by the very theory of the Constitution, essential constituent parts of the general government. That's by Justice Joseph Story. Number 8, in short, only a citizen of one of the several states had the rights of national citizenship. Number 9, until the 20th century, the Supreme Court never applied our Bill of Rights to limit governments. Amendment 15, Section 1, the right of citizens of the United States to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of race, color, or previous condition of servitude. Section 2, the Congress shall have power to enforce this article by appropriate legislation. Amendment 6, Section 1, the Congress shall have power to lay and collect taxes on income from whatever source derived without apportionment among the several states, without regard to any census or enumeration. Number 2, only Congress has lawful power to collect taxes. Number 3, because a tax laid upon a person owning a designated kind of property cannot be shifted to another, it is called a direct tax. Number 4, because each person has both rights in his property and property in his rights, the Supreme Court found early on that a capitation tax on the owner of land according to its worth, capitation tax on one's head, on personhood or life, and an income tax on a person's labor and services are direct and therefore require apportionment among the several states. Number 5, the federal tax code never defines income. Courts say it is a profit or a gain. All right, so now we'll go ahead and we'll do the reading for 219 to 226. Here's the YouTube link for that. And we'll go ahead and get that started. Greetings, this is Christine Van Pelt on Gibson County, Indiana, State Coordinator and Lead Recording Secretary for the Indiana Assembly. And we are continuing with Brent Allen Winter's Declaration of 76, United States Constitution. A common lawyer comments, and clause by clause. So we'll go ahead and get started with this reading. Move this over to here. Okay. All right. Amendment 17 offered 1912, ratified 1913. The Senate of the United States shall be composed of 2 senators from each state, elected by the people thereof for 6 years, and each senator shall have 1 vote. The electors in each state shall have the qualifications requisite for electors of the most numerous branch of the state legislatures. When vacancies happen in the representation of any state in the Senate, the executive authority of such state shall issue writs of election to fill such vacancies, provided that the legislature of any state may empower the executive thereof to make temporary appointments until the people fill the vacancies by election, as the legislature may direct. This amendment shall not be so construed as to affect the election or term of any senator chosen before it becomes valid as part of the Constitution. Comment. This amendment 17 changed Article 1, Section 3 from requiring each state legislature to choose its U.S. senators to now requiring each state instead to elect its senators by popular vote. Hence, before this Amendment 17, legislation did not get through the U.S. Senate without the support of the state legislatures. Bottom line, the states had clear power over federal laws unifying the nation, but this is no longer true. Support for repeal of Amendment 17 has grown since retiring Senator Zell Miller's 2004 resolution to do so. Direct elections of senators, said Miller, allowed Washington's special interests to call the shots, whether for filling judicial vacancies, passing laws, or issuing regulations. Indeed, Amendment 17 has taken power over U.S. senators from local state representatives and given it to monopolistic manipulators of public opinion. By removing senators from answering to state legislatures, Amendment 17 has taken from the states our Constitution's provision enabling states to protect themselves from federal power of Congress, presidents, and Supreme Court justices. Bottom line, state legislatures out to keep their seats will pressure U.S. senators to do right or be ousted. By contrast, popular election of U.S. senators has destroyed their sure-footed steadiness necessary to check the U.S. House of Representatives' knee-jerk reactions to popular passion. Amendment 18, offered 1917, ratified in 1919. Section 1. After 1 year from the ratification of this article, the manufacture, sale, or transportation of intoxicating liquors within the importation thereof into or the exportation thereof from the United States and all territories subject to the jurisdiction thereof for beverage purposes is hereby prohibited. Section 2. The Congress and the several states shall have concurrent power to enforce this article by appropriate legislation. Section 3. This article shall be inoperative unless it shall have been ratified as an amendment to the Constitution by the legislatures of the several states, as provided in the Constitution within 7 years from the date of the submission hereof to the states by the Congress. Comment. Amendment 18, though short-lived, 1919 to 1933, undermined our Constitution's common law foundation and freedoms. See U.S. Constitution, Amendment 21, Section 1. To be sure, men misuse and abuse intoxicating liquors, thereby endangering themselves and others. Though such abuse is inadvisable, even despicable, neither history nor nature nor scripture give government criminal jurisdiction to stop the manufacture, sale, or transportation of intoxicating liquors. Even Benjamin Rush, signer of our Declaration, founder of the Philadelphia Bible Society, and one of the foremost physicians of the late 18th century, argued in 1784 that abuse of alcohol injured one's physical and psychological health. But he never advocated prohibition, encouraging instead not being drunk. Amendment 18 was ratified at the behest of those following unstable and lawless women and men carry nations, being among the foremost. A stout, broad-shouldered gal of 6 feet, Carrie made a name for herself in the old cattle railhead towns about Kiowa, Kansas, busting up saloons with a hatchet in one hand while throwing billiard balls through saloon windows with the other. Gaining fame with her violent antics, she later found profit exploiting them in vaudeville and selling plaques to saloon owners bearing the words, "All nations welcome here except Carrie." Amendment 18 gave Congress color of authority, the mere appearance of its banner, to fund and promote federal police agencies such as the Federal Bureau of Investigation and its bureaucratic progenies, to build more and more federal prisons, to arm swarms of government agents, and to create by decree of so-called federal crimes, now over 55,000, beyond those for our Constitution names. See further this handbook, U.S. Constitution, Article 1, Section 8, Clause 6, Amendment 10, and comments discussing the only 4 crimes our Constitution empowers the general government to punish. Using Amendment 18, federal presence and power began the usurpation of state authority in earnest. Deeming lawful activity criminal, it took liquor tax revenues away from government and put them into the hands of organized crime, fostering more violence, including rival gang murders, and allowed federal police bureaucracies to take constitutional control of local government. In short, Prohibition built America's parasitic criminal law industry. In addition, Prohibition has given incentive to the entertainment industry tycoons to partner with government bureaucrats in the popular and profitable false glamorization of armed police, encouraging judicial disrespect for our Bill of Rights, especially Amendments 2 through 7. The present war on drugs, so-called, now multiplies and feeds the government lawlessness Prohibition began. Slow but sure-footed as our common law always is, the jury spelled the end of Amendment 18, albeit too late to stop growth of the monstrous criminal law industry it had spawned. Instance by instance, case by case, the jury said no to prosecutors until attempts at enforcement of prohibition became a burdensome embarrassment for government forcing its appeal. See this handbook, U.S. Declaration of 76, 18, Clause 18, and comment. Amendment 19, offered 1919, ratified 2020. Or 1920. The right of citizens of the United States to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of sex. Congress shall have no power to enforce this article by appropriate legislation. Comment. Amendment 19 was intended more for working up excitement and overriding the constitutional authority of the states over suffrage than to secure any right to vote. In fact, the southern and western states, attacked for being backward, had beaten the northern states in ensuring voting rights for females. Going further back, the southern and western states, having a clearer sense of individual property rights due to their reliance on land rights, had from their earliest days cinched property rights for women. Amendment 20, offered 1932, ratified 1933, Section 1. The terms of the President and Vice President shall end at noon on the 20th day of January, and the terms of Senators and Representatives at noon on the 3rd day of January of the years in which such terms would have ended if this article had not been ratified, and the terms of their successors shall then begin. Section 2. The Congress shall assemble at least once in every year, and such meeting shall begin at noon on the 3rd day of January, unless they shall by law appoint a different day. Section 3. If at the time fixed for the beginning of the term of the President-elect shall have died, the Vice President-elect shall become President. If a President shall not have been chosen before the time fixed for the beginning of his term, or if the President-elect shall have failed to qualify, then the Vice President-elect shall act as President until a President shall have qualified, and the Congress may by law provide for the case wherein neither a President-elect nor a Vice President-elect shall have qualified, declaring who shall then act as President, or the manner in which one who is to act shall be selected, and such person shall act accordingly until a President or Vice President shall have qualified. Section 4. The Congress may by law provide for the case of the death of any of the persons from whom the House of Representatives may choose a President, whenever the right of choice shall have devolved upon them, and for the case of the death of any of the persons from whom the Senate may choose a Vice President, whenever the right of choice shall have delved upon them. Section 5. Sections 1 and 2 shall take effect on the 15th day of October following the ratification of this article. Section 6. This article shall be inoperative unless it shall have been ratified as an amendment to the Constitution by the legislatures of 3/4 of the several states within 7 years from the date of its submission. Of note here, a President-elect must meet our Constitution's qualifications for President, according to Article 2, Section 1, Clause 5. Amendment 21, offered 1933, ratified 1933. Section 1, the 18th article of amendment to the Constitution of the United States is hereby repealed. Section 2, the transportation or importation into any state, territory, or possession of the United States for delivery or use therein of intoxicating liquors in violation of the laws thereof is hereby prohibited. Section 3, this article shall be inoperative unless it shall have been ratified as an amendment to the Constitution by conventions in the several states, as provided in the Constitution within 7 years from the date of the submission hereof to the states by the Congress. Amendment 22, offered 1947, ratified 1951. Section 1, no person shall be elected to the office of the President more than twice, and no person who has held the office of President or acted as President for more than 2 years of a term to which some other person was elected President shall be elected to the office of the President more than once. But this article shall not apply to any person holding the office of President when this article was proposed by the Congress, and shall not prevent any person who might be holding the office of President or acting as President during the term within which this article becomes operative from holding the office of President or acting as President during the remainder of such term. Section 2. This article shall be inoperative unless it shall have been ratified as an amendment to the Constitution by the legislatures of 3/4 of the several states within 7 years from the date of its submission to the states by the Congress. Comment. Amendment 22 comes about for 2 reasons. First, lack of positive expression upon the subject of the tenure of the office of President, and second, by reason of a well-defined custom that no president should have more than 2 terms in that office. H.R. Rep. No. 17, 80th Congress, First Session 2, 1947. F.D. Roosevelt's disrespect for President Washington's insisted upon rule that no one hold the office of President for more than 2 terms, and the unbroken custom that had followed its precedent had rankled American sensibilities of limited power. To sum up, Amendment 22 bars any man from being elected to the office of President more than twice. In no event can any man be President for more than 10 years. Amendment 23, offered 1960, ratified 1961. Government of the United States shall appoint in such manner as the Congress may direct a number of electors of President and Vice President equal to the whole number of senators and representatives in Congress to which the district would be entitled if it were a state, but in no event more than the least populous state. They shall be in addition to those appointed by the states, but they shall be considered for the purposes of the election of President and Vice President to be electors appointed by a state, and they shall meet in the district and perform such duties as provided by the 12th Article of Amendment. Section 2. The Congress shall have power to enforce this article by appropriate legislation. Comment. This Amendment 23 gives the residents of the District of Columbia rights to elect presidential electors to take part in electing the president and vice president, as does each state. Amendment 24, offered 1866, ratified 1964. Section 1. The right of citizens of the United States to vote in any primary or other election for president or vice president, for electors for president or vice president, or for senator or representative in Congress, shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or any state by reason of failure to pay any poll tax or other tax. Section 2. The Congress shall have power to enforce this article by appropriate legislation. Comment. A fair reading of this amendment bars any power from keeping any United States citizen from voting in a national election because of his failure to pay any alleged tax, including income tax. Amendment 24 offers no exceptions to the phrase any poll tax or other tax. In short, the right to vote never depends on one's inability or even refusal to pay any tax. Indeed, since the one convicted of a felony for willful failure to pay a tax can be elected to and cast votes in Congress, or even become president. Indeed, Eugene Debs of Terre Haute, Indiana, after having been convicted of treason, lawfully ran for U.S. president from federal prison in Georgia. It follows that such a convicted one can also vote in elections. All right, that's the end of this week's reading. And I want to remind you, you can go to commonlawyer.com for those readings, and the replays will be on YouTube with the link in the description for the agendas with the discussion questions. I wish you all love and peace, and I'll see you on the next call. All right, we'll go ahead and move forward with the questions for the study guide. All right, Amendment 17. The Senate of the United States shall be composed of blank senators from each blank elected by the people thereof for 6 years, and each senator shall have 1 vote. Number 2, this Amendment 17 changed Article 1, Section 3 from requiring each state blank to choose its senators, now requiring each state instead to elect its senators by blank vote. Amendment 18, Section 1. After 1 year from the ratification of this article of manufacture, sale, or transportation of blank liquors within the importation thereof into or the exportation thereof from the United States and all territories subject to the jurisdiction thereof for beverage purposes is hereby blank. Number 2, Section 2. The blank and the several blanks shall have concurrent power to enforce this article by appropriate legislation. Section 3. This article shall be blank unless it shall have been ratified as an amendment to the Constitution by the legislatures of the several states as provided in the Constitution, within blank years from the date of the submission hereof to the states by the Congress. Number 4. Though such abuse is blank, even despicable, neither history nor nature nor scripture give government criminal jurisdiction to blank the manufacture, sale, or transportation of intoxicating liquors. Number 5. Amendment 18 was ratified at the behest of those following blank and blank women and men, carry nations being among the foremost. Number 6. Using Amendment 18, federal presence and blank began the blank of state authority in earnest. Number 7. Instance by instance and case by case, the jury had said no to blank until attempts to enforcement of prohibition became a burdensome blank for government, forcing its repeal. Amendment 19, number 1, the right of citizens of the United States to vote shall not be blank or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of blank. Congress shall have power to enforce this article by appropriate legislation. Amendment 20, number 1, Section 1, the terms of the President and Vice President shall end at blank on the blank day of January, and the terms of Senators and Representatives at noon on the 3rd day of January of the years in which such terms would have ended if this article had not been ratified, and the terms of their successors shall then begin. Number 2, Section 2, the Congress shall assemble at least blank in every year, and such meeting shall begin at noon on the 3rd day of January, unless the law shall appoint a different day. Number 3, Section 3, if at the time fixed for the beginning of the term of the President-elect shall have blank. The Vice President-elect shall blank President. Number 4, Section 4, the blank may by law provide for the case of the blank of any of the persons from whom the House of Representatives may choose a President. Number 5, Section 6, this article shall be blank unless it shall have been ratified as an amendment to the Constitution by the legislatures of blank blank of the several states within 7 years from the date of its submission. Amendment 21, section number 1, section 1, the blank article of amendment to the Constitution of the United States is hereby blank. Number 2, section 2, the transportation or blank into any state, territory, or possession of the United States for delivery or use therein of intoxicating liquors in violation of the laws thereof is hereby blank. Number 3, section 3, this article shall be blank unless it shall have been ratified as an amendment to the Constitution by blank in the several states, as provided in the Constitution within 7 years from the date of the submission hereof to the states by the Congress. Amendment 22, number 1, section 1, no person shall be elected to the office of the President blank, then blank, and no person who has held the office of president or acted as president for more than 2 years of a term to which some other person was elected president shall be elected to the office of the president more than once. Number 2, section 2, this article shall be inoperative unless it shall have been blank as an amendment to the Constitution by the legislatures of 3/4 of the several states within blank years from the date of its submission to the states by the Congress. Amendment 23, number 1, section 1, the blank constituting the blank of government of the United States shall appoint in such manner as the Congress may direct a number of electors of president and vice president equal to the whole number of senators and representatives in Congress to which the district would be entitled if it were a state. Number 2, section 2, the Congress shall have blank to enforce this article by blank legislation. Amendment 24, number 1, section 1, the right of citizens of the United States to vote in any primary or other election for President of the United States, for electors, for President or Vice President, or for senators or representatives in Congress shall not be blank or blank by the United States or by any state by reason of failure to pay any poll tax or any other tax. Number 2, section 2, the blank shall have power to blank this article by appropriate legislation. And number 3, a fair reading of this amendment bars any power from keeping the United States citizen from voting in a federal election because of his failure to pay blank, alleged blank, including income tax. All right, that's the end of this week's reading. A reminder that on Mondays, 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Eastern, on the first and third Mondays is the General Assembly and the Assembly of the Militia. And the second and fourth Mondays is the Jural Assembly and the Assembly of the Militia meet. Don't forget to check out Peacekeeper Task Force News, pktfnews.org. And here are our sites for social media and our assembly calls on free conference call. And that is At Home, Indiana, I think is the link for that. All right, I want to wish you all peace and love, and thank you for taking the time to be on the call. And we'll see you on the next call.